1, 2, 3.
Guerra Movie House!
What is up, you guys? Welcome back. Welcome to Guerra Movie House. Today I will be sharing with you guys my top 10 favorite sci-fi movies of all time. Making this list was actually really simple. It took me like 3 minutes. Separating them in genre just seems a lot easier for me. I mean, it's hard for me to pick out my favorite movies of all time because I love each one for a different reason, and that list can change all the time. So I sat down and I thought about it, and it only took me like 3 minutes, like no joke, seriously. I sat down for 3 minutes and I just wrote down what my favorite sci-fi movies were, and it probably took me like another 30 seconds to put them in a certain order. So of course I'm going to start with 10 and work all the way down to 1, and yeah, let's get straight to it. So coming in at number 10, I have 2001: A Space Odyssey. After watching this for the very first time 2 weeks ago, I feel like I had to put it on this list. Yes, I did complain about the length of the movie, and yes, I did complain about the pacing of the movie, but in all reality, it is such a beautiful movie. I mean, the special effects are groundbreaking for whenever this came out. It came out in the late 60s, and it really is amazing to me because I feel like this movie just looks like it was made last year. I actually found out that even though the ending left me with a lot of questions, that's okay. That was supposed to happen. Stanley Kubrick wanted the viewers to be left with questions because in reality, we're supposed to answer these questions on our own because he wants us to see this movie in our own individual way. The villain in this movie, HAL 9000, is one of my favorite characters of all time, and I've only seen this movie once, and I can already say that he's one of my favorite characters of all time, one of my favorite villains, just because of his characteristic. The character that he plays in the movie is such a strong role, and to me says a lot about who he is. I don't want to spoil anything, but to me it has a lot of meaning about what this movie is trying to say on a personal level. But Stanley Kubrick, I honestly think that he had a vision before he even started making this movie. And I'm starting to believe that by the time this movie was over, this movie was exactly what he wanted it to be, because he's a very strict, or was a very strict filmmaker. He knew what he wanted, and he didn't care how long it would take for him to get that. He worked at it, and he had a vision, and he made it. And this movie is definitely worth watching. Very artistic. Just the shots in space alone are beautiful, and every single shot inside the ships are phenomenal. My mind was completely blown away because this movie is timeless. It doesn't look like something that was made in the 1960s. It looks like something that could have been done now. If you guys haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. It is a very long movie. It is very slow paced, but in my opinion, by the time you're done with it, you will be very glad you watched it because it's very artistic, very beautiful, and it just says a lot about groundbreaking films, because this is definitely one of them. Coming in at number 9, I have Avatar. This movie to me is amazing because not only are the visuals fantastic, not only are the visuals groundbreaking, but it's the stories. The stories are really important to me whenever I watch a movie. People always talk about the special effects of this movie and how good it looks, and yeah, I do have to agree, but at the same time, people seem to forget the story, because it's the story that makes a movie such a good movie. But the story that James Cameron wrote, I believe, is beautiful. He created a brand new world that just seems so real. And I know that might sound crazy, but that's what I honestly believe. I mean, I was watching this movie and I felt like this could be real because everything that he made, I might know that it's not real or might not exist, but it just looked so beautiful and so good. And the characters in this movie just brought so much emotion to themselves, to the characters that were playing, that actually brought a lot of characteristic and life to the story, and you actually feel for these people. You feel for the Na'vi, and you feel for what they're going through, and you're kind of rooting for them, and you're like not rooting for the humans, even though you're a human, and you're like, what's going on? Why is James Cameron making me feel this way? But it really is a really good movie. It's beautiful to look at. The action is great. The visuals are great, and the story, I think, is really good. Coming in at number 8, I have The Iron Giant. Yes, this is an animated film, and yes, it is on my list. This is such a good movie, a really good kids movie, but at the same time, as an adult, I was blown away. I really truly was. This movie is about a little boy named Hogarth. He lives in a very, very, very extremely small town where everybody knows everybody. His mom, played by Jennifer Aniston, is a waitress. She's never home. He spends a lot of time by himself because his mother, single mom, is constantly working to pay the bills, so she doesn't have enough time to spend with her son. So rumor has it that something fell from the sky and no one knows what it is, and everyone's gossiping, trying to figure out what it is, and a lot of weird things are happening, especially involving metal. But this boy, being in the woods, ends up finding a iron giant, this really, really huge, and when I mean huge, I'm not exaggerating. I mean, like, this thing is huge. He did fall down from the sky. He has like this lump on his head, so he has no memory of where he came from, and he's not really capable of talking. They go this awesome relationship. The Iron Giant ends up teaching the little boy a lot of life lessons, and the little boy sort of returns to favor. This movie really does have a really good life lesson in it, I think so. My kids love it, I love it. A lot of fun, and a lot of emotion too. I mean, I actually found myself getting teary-eyed watching this, especially towards the end. If you guys haven't seen it, check it out. The next movie on this list is definitely, in my opinion, one of Steven Spielberg's masterpieces. He does have a few of them out, and this is one of them. I think so. Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Such a good story. What I love a lot about this movie, about this story, is the way that Steven Spielberg decided to not really let us see any of the aliens or much of their ships. I mean, the suspense is built with the emotions of the actors, the emotions of each character, sounds, and a lot of lights. A lot of people around the world start seeing lights and start hearing sounds that they cannot describe, and it becomes this huge phenomenon all around the world, and people are just wondering, what the hell is going on? A small amount of people start having this vision, this obsession over a vision that they're having of a mountain or a hill, and they just feel like they're drawn to it and they have to do something about it. Richard Dreyfuss. How do you pronounce his last name? He is actually the main character in this movie, and this movie, I mean, even though there's a lot of suspense and there are small touches of horror, there is so much comedy in this movie. I feel like this role was just perfect for him because he can be a comedic actor at times, and he just brings so much comedy to this movie, and towards the end there's a lot more heart warmth brought into this movie, and I just think he did an amazing job making his character come to life, or making you feel like he's not crazy when everyone else does, because you really end up feeling for him and what he's going through. So he has this obsession wanting to know more and more because he just feels drawn to it. If you guys haven't seen this, highly check it out, especially if you're Spielberg fans, if you're sci-fi fans. You get the best of both worlds in this movie. Highly recommended. The next movie on this list has to go to Terminator 2, Judgment Day. I'm not going to go into too much depth into this movie. All I want to say is that this movie, the reason it was really good is because I think the action, I mean, not only is it a really good sci-fi movie, it's one of the greatest action movies ever made. The story is great, the acting is great, the music is unforgettable, the visual effects are groundbreaking, and it really challenged a lot of people after this because they were like, we have to create whatever James Cameron created. How did he do that? And by that, I'm talking about the T-1000. He brought so much to this movie. I mean, this guy was like legit scary. I saw this movie for the first time as a kid, and I was scared of the T-1000. That is a guy that you don't want looking for you because he will do whatever he has to do. Even if he puts himself into danger, he doesn't care because he has one goal. And that one goal is to destroy you. So make sure you're never wanted by a T-1000. I'm just saying. Number 5 on this list is Planet of the Apes. I honestly love this movie. I mean, this movie to me is just the story. I keep asking myself, how in the world did somebody come up with something like this? Because if you've never seen this and you hear about it, you actually think it sounds crazy. The story is pretty much about a very small crew that are out in outer space, and after flying for a long period of time, they actually end up crash landing on a planet. They're a little lost, so they begin to wander around, and then they find themselves with other people who are running because they believe they're being chased. They end up finding out that what was chasing them is this huge group of apes. And what's so special about these apes is that they have human-like characteristics. They talk, they walk, they have homes. I mean, these are like legit people, except that they're monkeys. So of course he's never seen anything like that. I've never seen anything like that. So he was amazed by it, and he's also extremely confused because he learns that all these other humans that are just like him don't talk, that they don't understand anything that's going on. So he realized that in this world, in this planet, things are actually the same but flipped around. Humans are the animals and these apes are the stronger species. I don't want to spoil the ending for you. I know it's been spoiled many times. Most people already know the ending going into the movie. I know I did, but I still give it that chance and I still ended up liking it. If you guys haven't seen it, highly check it out because I mean, they really pulled this story off. It actually pisses me off that the ending is like right undercover. You know what I mean? Like the big twist. My fourth favorite sci-fi movie is Alien, the first one by Ridley Scott. This movie is like, it's gritty, it's disgusting, it has action, it's suspenseful, it's horror, it's sci-fi. It's just like so many things into one, and I think that's what makes it so great. These people struggling to survive and just knowing that the alien is like right there, but still not knowing whether or not it's right there was like extremely scary and very suspenseful, and that's what makes it such a good movie. You have a small crew in outer space who start hearing these sounds, a sort of signal that's coming from a certain planet that is pretty much letting them know that there could be life on that planet. So they go to this planet trying to figure out whether or not there is life and where the signal could be coming from. They end up finding something that is pretty interesting, and they accidentally end up bringing something back to the ship. If you guys haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. I don't want to say anymore because I don't want to spoil it. Just know that there's a lot of disgusting scenes in this, but it really is an awesome story. The acting is phenomenal. Just watching this crew fighting to survive is very entertaining. A lot of the movie is on the ship, and that's because they accidentally bring something onto the ship that makes them fight for survival, but I highly recommend you guys really check this out. There's a lot of horror, a lot of suspense, a lot of action. And it does have a slow pace to it towards the beginning, but once it starts, you sort of forget about that because your eyes will be glued to the TV. There's so much suspense in this movie. It's unbelievable. And that's why I had to put it on this list. Please do yourself a favor and watch it as soon as you can because it really is good. Number 3 is Blade Runner, another Ridley Scott film. This movie is extremely different. I promise you, once you watch this, you will know that you've never actually seen anything like this because this movie is one of a kind. Nothing else has ever been written like this. Nothing else has ever been shot like this. In my opinion, I believe this movie is one of a kind and it's something extremely special. This movie came out in the early 80s, and just watching it for the first time, you won't think that because Ridley Scott and his team created this breathtaking world that is just amazing to look at. The visuals in this movie will shock you because they are that good, and I'm not joking. I am dead serious. The first time I saw this movie, I was blown away. I was amazed at when the year this movie came out and how it looked, because it didn't look like something that was made in the early 80s. Just, they really pulled it off. Just the way they created this Los Angeles world, or this Earth alone, is mind-blowing. It really is. So this story is pretty much about Blade Runners, or at least one. Harrison Ford is a Blade Runner, and a Blade Runner is pretty much a detective, a person that has been assigned to hunt down wanted people, or in this case, replicants, which are robots that look like humans. In this future, replicants or robots that look like humans are created to work. They're given certain jobs, and a lot of them end up escaping because they start to have dreams or visions, or pretty much start believing that they could have a life of their own and they were made for something else. There's actually a lot of replicants that don't know they're replicants, and that's what makes it such a really, really good mystery, because throughout the whole entire movie, you can't help but wonder if Harrison Ford is a replicant himself and he just doesn't know it. And that's a question that Ridley Scott left everyone with. But just like most of Ridley Scott's films, this movie is like poetry. I know that sounds weird, but that's just how I see it. I see poetry when I see this movie. It has that film noir detective feel to it, that grainy, rainy, cold feel to it, to where the story is almost very, very romantic. Yeah, he's hunting them down, but at the same time, you don't know who to root for. You don't know if you should root for the replicants, the robots, or you don't know if you should root for him, because you end up feeling for both of them, especially towards the end when you see the replicants and how hurt they are, knowing that they're hunted down and knowing that they have dreams and feelings. You end up feeling sorry for them. I don't want to spoil too much, but the ending is what really does it for me. Just watching that dove, if you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about. That dove fly away into the air while it's raining with the score that Ridley Scott chose for this movie. It gets me every time. Yeah, if you guys haven't seen it, please check this out. It's a really, really good movie, you guys. Just give it a chance. I know there's a lot of negative things floating around about this movie, but take it from me. It's awesome. For those of you that have been watching my channel for a while and you think you know me pretty well, number 2 on this list should not come to a surprise to you. Star Wars, The Empire Strikes Back. What I love about Star Wars is Darth Vader. He's one of my favorite villains. I think he's amazing. I think his story is great. The character is great. I just think he brings so much to the story. I feel like he is, if not the most important, then one of the most important characters in the whole entire Star Wars saga. And for that, I love him. I just think he's fantastic. Now, don't get me wrong, the first one was really good, but out of all of them, this has to be my favorite, and I had to put it on the second spot. The whole entire movie is just, it has this dark, depressing feel to it. The movie literally starts off with the war between both teams. You have the Galactic Empire and the Rebel Alliance, and they're just going at it. And of course, Darth Vader is a lot darker in this movie, and that's what I love about it. George Lucas not only made this movie a lot darker and grittier, but you also learn the most in this movie about the characters, and I think that's why a lot of people love this one the most, because it's very character driven. You get to know each character a little bit better, and that's what makes it such a really good story. Another great thing about this movie is Yoda. We see Yoda training Luke Skywalker and just watching Luke struggle with his emotions, just like his father. And how can I mention this movie without mentioning the big twist? The twist that by now is not even kept a secret anymore, not like it was whenever this movie came out. Whenever we find out that Darth Vader is actually Luke Skywalker's father, I mean, can you imagine being there at the first viewing and finding that out for the first time? It's got to be amazing. The visuals are great. The score is unforgettable. The characters matter a little tiny bit more in this movie. You learn more about them. And just the whole entire tone of the movie is dark. It's gritty. And it's so good. This movie to me is like the definition of good storytelling. Because not only is the movie good, but the story itself and the whole entire Star Wars saga, in my opinion, I think is really, really good storytelling. I know a lot of people have seen this, but if you're one of the people that hasn't, do yourself a favor and watch it. Highly recommend it. Okay, you guys, last but definitely not least, my number 1 favorite sci-fi movie of all time has to be The Matrix. I would choose the whole entire trilogy, but I'm not going to cheat. I'm only going to pick the first one. But just like Terminator 2 at Judgment Day, not only is this a awesome sci-fi movie, there's so much action. This movie is action-packed and thrilling at the same time. It has all these sci-fi elements, but also action elements all mixed into one with awesome, awesome music. The movie itself that came out in like the late 90s changed so many things in the film industry. And I'm not gonna lie to you guys, whenever I first saw this, I was like 12 or 13 years old, and I remember actually wondering whether or not this world is the Matrix. But that's what made this movie unforgettable. It's the story, because like, how does someone even come up with something like this? You know, how does someone come up with the idea of all of this life that we have not being real? The very first Matrix has really impacted my life on a personal level. I think it's a brilliant film. I think it's a brilliant story. I think it was well done and pulled off. I don't see any flaws in this movie, to be honest with you. It's definitely one of my favorite movies of all time. And I know a lot of people have seen this movie, but if you are one of the few, okay, I highly suggest you check this out. But that's my top 10, you guys. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you for joining me. Leave your comments down below. Share your opinions. Let me know what you guys think of my list. Even if you guys are open to it and you want to share what your favorite sci-fi movie of all time is, please let me know. Thank you guys very much for watching. Like the video if you like, and I'll see you guys next time.
Thank you for watching Guerra Movie House. Like, comment, and subscribe for more videos. Peace out, homies.